Hi, I recently did a video on my new Louis Vuitton pouch. And in that video, I mentioned how I was thinking about doing a video about whether luxury is dead or not, because that seems to be the major topic. Are luxury bags just no longer? Does anyone still want them, etc.? And I asked if anyone would like to hear my thoughts on the matter. And I got an overwhelming response that yes, they would like to hear what I have to say. So if you're one of those people, here you go, let's talk about it. I definitely have a bit of a different take on it. Not your average, what most people are saying. So I don't know how that will sit. But anyway, let's go. Let's talk about what I feel the situation is pretty much when it comes to are luxury handbags dead or alive? I have notes here because I really want to keep this as concise as possible, and I definitely tend to ramble. If you've seen any of my videos, I could talk for days. So I'm trying really hard to keep this concise, stick to the facts, stick to my most important opinions, and go from there so we don't have to make this be an all-day event. So that's why I'll be looking down at my notes, because I just want to keep this short but sweet, sort of. Okay, so in general, when it comes to luxury handbags, in the history of who they were intended for, what the companies, how they started and so forth. Let's just mostly talk about the top three. The top three being Hermes, Chanel, Louis Vuitton. Hermes began in the 1830s, I believe it was 1837. Chanel started her shop around 1910 and Louis Vuitton opened his first shop in 1859. So we're coming up to 2 centuries ago. They were started a long time ago with travel bags, like luggage with Louis Vuitton and so forth, equestrian with Hermes, just really, really incredibly durable, well-made, bespoke pieces that were intended basically for the wealthiest of the wealthy. And it kind of continued in that way for the longest time, moving into the 1900s. And then moving into the 2000s and so forth. Obviously, there were people who weren't just the wealthiest of the wealthy during those later years who purchased these items and so forth. But in general, I want to say like the middle classes and lower class when it comes to economics, especially I'm speaking mostly for what I know for in the United States, but I believe this holds true most places also. It wasn't in your face. I mean, you would see some of your maybe movie stars carrying a lovely bag or a Chanel or whatever. You definitely were aware, you know, Grace Kelly, Princess Diana, she carried Louis Vuitton and things like that. You were aware, you saw them, but generally speaking, it wasn't something that you aspired to too much. Generally, the average person in the average income in your average city. Okay, so most people would see it on the wealthier people, would possibly aspire to having a bag or two. Then came social media. So in my opinion, I think that made a huge difference. So the bags were originally intended as a luxury, well-made, well-designed thing for people who could afford that extra mile that was taken to create these incredible products and these incredible designs and so forth that people loved. That was the intention. Then came social media. Social media happened, well, YouTube happened in 2005. Soon after, people were putting their collections out there. They were talking more about the bags. The ideas and the beauty of them and the way the zippers functioned and all of that happened to be told to everyone out there. Anyone of any economical class could listen and fall in love with them too, when they weren't really inundated by that information before social media, in my opinion, unless you specifically looked into it. I came from a very middle to upper classish middle class family, so I'm right in there with everybody else in that respect. I knew about the bags, I loved them. I've loved bags since I was a tiny little girl. Any handbags, leathers, loved them. I have a whole story on my very first leather bag that I got when I was 11, and to this day I can remember the feeling, and it was just a, you know, like a hand-stamped, hand-tooled kind of a more Western type leather bag. Loved it. So I've had a love for bags in general my entire life. So yes, I was aware of the Gucci's and of the Chanel's and of the Louis Vuitton, and Hermes not even so much at that point in time. But did I think that was something I was ever going to have? Not necessarily, but I still always had my eye on bags. So that's how that sort of started. And then And around 2005, when things got to be much more in your face, you got to learn more about them. You saw other people wearing these bags. You saw other people that were similar to you in a lot of ways buying these bags. And you started to think, if you're a bag lover like me, you're starting to think, I can save my money and do this too. So all of a sudden, what became something that basically was mostly the upper class, wealthier individuals who purchased these items now became in the minds and in the hearts and in the aspirations of the people that didn't have that immediate wealth and they didn't grow up with that wealth and so forth. So that's when that all happened, and that happened to be a style time too, when things were just a little bit over the top, a little bit, you know, big buckles, big this, people wearing head to toe, designer, you know, all that kind of stuff. The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, all that stuff, you know, all those things happened in about these last 20 years, and it became so much more in your face. People would watch The Hills, they'd watch the TV shows, Sex and the City, all those things where you'd start to see all these designers. It became more accessible in your brain, in your mind, for your aspirations. So like me, at that point in time, I had small children. My kids were in elementary school, and I'm thinking, okay, I can save my pennies. I can save my, birthday money, whatever, you know what I mean? I can do that. I was a stay-at-home mom at the time. Husband was working his way through business, and we were moving up the ladder and so forth, but we were very, very careful with our money, very careful. We made sure we had investments and, saved for our children's college, which we paid for fully. All those things, made sure we had a house and a safe car, and all those things in the savings and the retirement was already set. So any discretionary money came into the picture. We would get to decide what to do with it. And I thought I would take some of that, whatever I could come up with money I got for my birthday or whatever, and I would start putting it toward a bag. And then I got my first bag. First designer bag, that kind of thing. Had a designer bag or two in college and high school, but nothing major. Anyway, so that's what started. I started seeing it more often. Others did too. And I believe that's when, I want to say, the middle class, you know what I mean? When the lower than wealthy classes started to get involved. They wanted the cachet. They wanted to experience the incredible craftsmanship and just to feel what it feels like to walk around with something that's that coveted on your arm. I mean, it is a good feeling, let's face it. People have that about them, especially if they happen to love handbags. It's true. So it became something that many, many, many more people than ever before were buying, were aspiring to, were saving for. Some people going into debt for them, not good, but it happened. And it was definitely more of a thing in these past 20 years, more so than it had been in the past 150 years. Okay, so all of a sudden, these past 20 years changed a lot. And I believe it has to do with social media influence and TV shows and things like that when it comes to those specific brands and the heftier prices and so forth. Then, and the prices then, like at the beginning of that time, around 2006, 2007, whatever, yeah, they were still expensive. I happen to remember I volunteered at this horse therapy situation where they would have children with autism that would lay like prone across the body of the horse as the horse is walking around in circles for half an hour. And I volunteered in the dead of winter in Illinois, mucking around in my boots and stuff, in my big coat, holding on to the back of the child and patting and singing to them and stuff. I remember going around for hours and hours, and my brain was stuck on this one Louis Vuitton bag that I loved. It was the Speedy Azure, not bandolier. They didn't even have bandolier at the time, and it was $500. And I'm thinking, of the money I've saved, do I want to buy that bag? Do I want to buy that bag? I'm imagining myself with that bag. I remember walking around in circles, obsessed with that bag. I still have that bag to this day, by the way, but that was $500 at the time. Prices have gone way up. And do you know when that happened? When all of a sudden the demand for those items became way higher. Basically, as a wife of a businessman, I understand how it works with supply and demand. Prices for everything have gone up. Have you priced a bag of Doritos lately? And there's more air in it than ever. So everything has gone up in price. It just has. This is the way the economy has worked. This is the way inflation is working, whatever for us. Everything has been raised in price. Is it worth the raising in price? It's up to you. Are you willing to spend that money? Are you willing to pay $9 for a bag of Doritos? How important are those Doritos to you? How important is that Lamborghini to you? Is a Lamborghini really that much better than a much lesser car, whatever? It's about the style, it's about the cachet, it's about the history, it's about all that stuff. Same thing with luxury. Absolutely same thing with luxury bags. It's all supply and demand, and the demand was huge. So many people wanted to be carrying those bags, wanted to show the bags, wanted to show the bags on social media, wanted to seem like it helped them feel like they now somehow made it or whatever. I don't know what that means to other people. Some people wanted to put out on a show and feel better about themselves using these products. Other people just really enjoy the product and the history and the feel and the longevity and the classicness of these products. People have their different reasons, but it definitely opened up a whole generation of people who really wanted these things. Okay, that was started 20 years ago. Those people who were in my category at the time with young children and they were doing their collections and stuff right when things were starting to raise in price, they got a few items and so forth. They've kind of grown up, you know what I mean? 20 years is a while. Their children are more grown. They also had to, and the people a little younger than me, they were also trying to like put their kids through college, make sure they had a house, you know, make sure they have a reliable car, put things in retirement. Focus changes. You know, you start thinking, well, what can I do with my family? Can I take my kids to Disney World? Can I take that trip to Paris I've dreamed of my whole life with my husband? Those kind of things started becoming more important as you age. And I've learned to, as I've aged, things just aren't as important to me now as they were at the time that I was obsessed with these things. Do I love my bags? Yes, I was born loving bags, and not just designer bags. All bags, anything that's done well, that's stylish, that has, it just gives me the feels. I love it. I can wear jeans from Target all day long and I'm happy as can be, but I want my bag to be my bag because that's my thing. If it's your thing, then it's very important to you. Everyone has their thing, and especially if it's not about trying to put on any kind of an air, you know, so others can think something of you. If it's really your thing that just gets you going, it is worth the money to you, to an extent. And everybody comes from a different economical background. Everybody comes from a different mindset. Everybody knows what their savings, what their retirement is. Everybody knows where they're going with their life financially. And everyone needs to make that decision for themselves. As we raised in our wealth as the years went by, my husband and I, we made sure everything was taken care of ahead of time, and then whatever discretionary money was left over, we could decide what to do with on our own. He has his things, I have my things. But the good news is that we never had to worry about that upsetting the apple cart in any way when it came to those major bits in our lives that were the most important. So, people have to make choices. In comes the next generation. You know how that is with a generation. If everybody in your generation before you wore top hats and canes, you know, and were really fancy and the diamonds, you know, everywhere, the next generation wants to become, you know, hippies. You know, they just want to do the different thing. It just happens to work that way. The generation now, I guess Generation Y it would be, that has grown up seeing people dripping in head to toe Louis Vuitton at the Grammy Awards and all that kind of stuff, they probably have a bad taste in their mouth for that kind of thing. It's not something that they aspire to. They saw it, it's kind of old, it's been done, it's old school, blah, blah, blah. To them, it's more about travel, it's more about things that are just a little, you know, more sedate, not spending a ton of money. Then many of them don't have a ton of money with economics going the way they are. So yeah, it's dead for them, luxury, because they don't care. We cared. It was part of what we liked at the time. It's a part of what many people have loved over the centuries. People who were wealthy could afford these things without breaking the bank. And that has never died, and I don't believe ever will. So you have these different generations of people. You have these different economic classes of people. You have these different social media and other media influences. And I think all of that kind of makes it where people grow and change. People move out of a phase. So yeah, they're not buying as much. It's way more expensive. May or may not be worth it. I'll be honest, the quality of my bags that I have, for the most part, have been outstanding. Absolutely outstanding, gorgeous, perfect, lovely quality, absolutely great. Have I had some issues? Yes, I have. Have I had issues with anything? Yes, I have. I've had issues with Coach. I've had issues with other things too. I've had issues with furniture I've purchased that was, everybody has an issue with something every once in a while. Nothing is perfect. Manufacturing is never perfect. However, if a company stands by it, all that kind of thing, if the majority of what you're getting is worth it and you know that you will be keeping it forever and you could give it to your daughter or daughter-in-law or whatever, you can pass it down to your sister, years to come, it may be worth it to you. So as I mentioned, everything boils down to what are you willing to pay? And that is how it works in the world of items, in the world of luxury, in the world of snacks, in the world of groceries, in the world of everything, clothing, whatever. If people are willing to pay 10 times more for an item that you are selling, you're going to charge 8 to 10 times more than you are right now. It's the way business works. So as long as there is a market, as long as there are people purchasing, enough people purchasing, I think that it will still remain. And people need to decide for themselves whether they think that's something that they want for their life. They need to decide for themselves if it's something that benefits them in any way, if it doesn't hurt any other thing going forward in their lives. And I think that's fine. So in general, 150 years, basically the wealthier of the people were buying those products. In the last 20, 30 years, whatever, it kind of went crazy and it became something that everyone, not everyone, you know what I mean, many more people of different economical classes strived for, wanted, experienced, enjoyed, loved, became a love for, whatever. Ideas change, economic things change, your feelings on how you care about these things change, whether that gave you enough of the wonderful feelings or if you'd rather spend that money on a trip. If you'd rather spend that money on a house, if you'd rather spend that money on a car, if you'd rather spend that money on your child's education. If you have all those other things taken care of already and you still have money left over, there's no need not to buy something that you like, no matter what that thing is, as long as you have all the other ducks in a row. So I don't think, personally, that luxury in and of itself is dead. I think it will always be something. It will always be a thing. It may ebb and flow and change somewhat. Prices may come down a little bit. They may not. They may go back to their target audience, their target customer, which is just the wealthiest of the wealthy. And the rest of us, as we did before, had to just, would just have to be like, okay, well, that's not for me. I don't have 7 Lamborghinis in my garage either. I don't live, on Park Avenue. I don't have those things. That's okay. Not everything is meant for every person. Not everything is meant for every person. And it doesn't have to be. There can be people who think it's absolutely ridiculous to spend that money on something like that. Yet that's a person who would possibly do something that I find I would never do. It's all a personal opinion. So in my personal feelings on how I am dealing with things, I love all the items I've collected over the years. I use them. I use every item for the most part, except for some that are, older and I don't use very often, but they're very sentimental to me for whatever reason, or I just find them to be like works of art. So to me, they give me joy as someone would buy a painting. So I still love the ones I have. I've gotten rid of the ones that did not serve me, did not work well for me. There was no reason to keep those. Don't want to just keep stuff like that. I go for classic pieces with longevity, things I know that I will use and can pass down, because to me that's worth the investment, the money. And again, I've experienced very few quality issues with my pieces. I'm very pleased for the most part about everything that I've ever purchased from any of the luxury companies. So for me, I look for items that aren't just luxury. I don't personally care about the name on it so much. I truly don't. As a matter of fact, I do find it almost embarrassing a little bit of time sometimes to take a bag with, major logos and stuff. I don't want to stand out. I don't want to feel targeted. I don't want what that says about me to some people. So I am kind of careful as to where I wear things and where I take my bags and so forth. I really truly am, especially safety measures and things sometimes too. You need to be safe. You need to not be targeted. You don't want to make any kind of a statement that could affect anything in your situation. So yeah, I am careful about that. But do I still love those bags? Yes, I do. And will I still wear them? Yes, I do. But I pick and choose my places. In the meantime, I absolutely adore other companies that are not luxury bag companies. I have found, and it takes a lot of looking though, it's harder to find, but found some companies that I really, really love and really trust. And, you know, just here and there, I'll try a bag from a different company, not one of the ultra luxury ones, and give it a try, see how it goes, see how long it lasts, and enjoy every second of it, because I'm looking for a classic style, something I know works for me, something that is just good, something that will just really give me a lot of joy when I use it and will last long enough to help me feel like I'm okay with spending that particular amount of money for it. So that's how I go about it. How do you feel about it? Do you feel like absolutely not, you know, I think it's dead, it's never coming back, blah, blah. Are you also kind of like me in that, sure, it's still around, it's changing. It changed massively in the last 20 years from what it had been for 150 years. But I don't think it's really going anywhere. I think it's still a wanted commodity. I think people still appreciate the quality, the history, the styles and designs for the most part. I just think that the people have changed some in the last 20 years in what they find important, and the different generations change. And yeah, the supply and demand, the pricing of everything has gone crazy. So that has made people kind of really take a step back and reevaluate. So I don't think it's dead. I think it might be on life support a little bit right now, but I think it's going to be just fine. So that's my thought. Let me know what you think about any of this. I appreciate your thoughts, and I appreciate you. Take care. Bye.